Listening to Good Morning Scotland. Let's bring you more on our main news. Our plan to stop sending black bin waste to landfill has been delayed. The Scottish Government wanted to ban the practice by the end of the year, but a BBC Disclosure investigation found it would mean truckloads of waste being shipped daily to England for processing. Well, we did ask to speak to the Climate Action Secretary, Gillian Martin, this morning, but we're told she wasn't available. Instead, let's speak with someone who knows the industry inside out. Alasdair Meldrum is Director of Waste Management Consultants, Albion Environmental. Morning to you.
Good morning.
I mean, we're just a matter of weeks away from this ban coming into force. It won't be enforced for 2 years. And I suppose most people could have seen that coming.
I think that's true. I think it's fairly inevitable the ban has been delayed because there is not sufficient waste energy capacity in Scotland at the moment, and there's unlikely to be until 2 years' time. And
waste energy, incinerators in essence, the burning the waste?
Yes, effectively. So it's just burning the waste and recovering the energy from the waste.
Just explain to us what waste we're talking about here. We'll all be, of course, used to separating our household waste into various bins. Which specific bin, as it were, is the one that is being targeted here?
So this is what we would call the residual waste. So this is everything that doesn't fit into your current recycling bins, and that's one of the challenges we've got. That we estimate that 80% of what's in that residual bin should not actually be there. It should be in the recycling system. So something like 30% of that is actually food waste. So if we could encourage the public to use their food waste collection and the recycling system better, we would actually produce a lot less residual waste, and we wouldn't have this issue with this gap in capacity we've got.
So at the moment, when we put our food waste, for instance, out to the side of the curb, or what is left over in our black bin bags is going to landfill. It's just being buried somewhere.
So at the moment, the vast majority of that is actually going to waste energy plants, but there is a gap in capacity at the moment. So we estimate it's anything between probably 300,000 tonne and 600,000 or 700,000 tonne of waste that has got no waste energy capacity at the moment. So that if the ban did come into force, then we'd be left with moving that waste to England or to Europe, and that's not really sustainable.
And is 2 years a long enough delay, do you think, to get that capacity in place here?
Yes, because there's capacity coming on stream. There's a facility in Irvine getting built at the moment, and there's a facility in the west of Glasgow getting built. So once that comes on stream, there should be sufficient capacity. But where the public can help is by actually using the recycling system that they've been provided a lot better. So
what are we doing wrong at the moment?
Well, at the moment, for example, so most of Scotland has a food waste collection system, but it's estimated only 20% of the population are using it. And that food waste alone makes up 30% of that residual waste.
Oh, that's quite interesting, actually, because I have noticed, certainly in my street, because I do put my food bin out every week, that not every household does it. It's true. It's interesting that people don't. Why would people be reluctant? How do we get them to change their habits?
I think there's been a bit of lack of education about all these changes coming in. We've not educated the public. We've not helped inform them about how they use the bin system they've been provided. A lot of the bin system was rolled out in Scotland probably 10 years ago, but we've not reinforced that message about how to use it properly and look at the guides the council have on their website. And there's lots of resources out there for people to look at.
To the uninitiated, just burning stuff might seem bad for the environment too.
Well, in terms of how we're meant to manage waste, we're meant to apply the waste hierarchy. So the first stage is don't produce the waste in the first place. The second is try and reuse it. And then the third is recycle. And you recover the energy and dispose is the last two options. So we should be doing everything possible not to dispose of the waste in the first place.
But when we do get to the point where we're using it, or at least burning it in incinerators, what are the benefits there in terms of obviously less going to landfill, but the residual energy that's produced?
So once you've got all the recycling done, then that residual waste still needs a home. So the best option for that is to incinerate it and recover the energy. Now, the reality is that there's organisations that will say they don't want an incinerator, they don't want a landfill site, But the reality is that waste continues to be produced, and you can't stop it. It's a consistent flow.
I wonder what you make overall of where we are in terms of the ambitious targets that have been set to get to net zero, for instance, and then the hiccups along the way, like this one, for instance, and also we saw, of course, the deposit recycling, deposit return scheme for cans and bottles also falling by the wayside.
I think what we've been very good in Scotland at doing is deciding on policy and putting legislation in place. What we've been very poor about doing is actually implementing that policy or implementing that legislation. And I think sometimes we actually try and do too many things. And what would be better doing is concentrating on one or two things and actually making sure they're fully implemented. You know, this whole journey started back in 2010. With the Waste Scotland, so the Zero Waste Scotland plan came in 2010, and that was 22 action points. Now, out of these 22 action points, none of them have actually been implemented, and that then led to Waste Scotland regulations 2012 that had included in that the landfill ban. So we've been trying to do this for a long time, and we keep almost reinventing things, but actually failing to implement in the first place.
And the push towards net zero costs, and there's been sort of added scrutiny, I think, in recent months and years on the cost of all of this. Some politicians questioning whether it is actually value for money. I wonder whether delays like this in a project which, you know, it means well, ultimately might add to the cynicism on the part of some members of the public.
Well, the challenge here is if the public actually used the recycling system as it was designed properly, the savings for Scotland are huge. The savings for Scotland are massive. So putting waste to waste energy at landfill is about 150, 160 pound a tonne. Putting food waste, for example, to an anaerobic digestion plant is about £5 a tonne or £10 a tonne. You know, the savings is for Scotland are enormous if we could get the public to use the system better.
Well, I think a lot of us feel as though we're doing our bit, but maybe, as you say, not good enough yet. Alasdair, thank you for speaking to us. Alasdair Meldrum, there, Director of Waste Management Consultants, Albion Environmental.
Time now.